Well, good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. Welcome to this session 3, UPR Plus series. My name is Gloria Manzotti, and I will be your moderator for this vibrant dialogue. This session is about digital system and national mechanism for monitoring human rights commitments. And the main question is, how can UNDP support digital solutions and national mechanisms that enhance accountability and tracking of UPR and human rights commitments? So taking into account this very relevant question, today we are aiming to achieve three objectives for this session. The first one is to engage understanding of digital systems for effectively monitoring and tracking the implementation of UPR and human rights commitments. Showcase practical experiences and innovative solutions coming from Paraguay, Maldives, and Pakistan, highlighting how digital tools and coordination mechanisms can strengthen national capacities for accountability, transparency, and effective implementation of those human rights recommendations. And last but not least, to reflect on how UNDP capacities to support national partners in establishing robust monitoring systems, leveraging digital solutions to align UPR recommendations and human rights commitments with the sustainable development strategies and donor priorities. One note for our audience is feel free to use our chat, and let's begin this session with saying thank you to Rob Ock, our Chief Digital Officer, who will share with us some reflection in our opening remarks. Please, Rob, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And, you know, it's great to see everybody and it's great to be with you. You know, I'm really very happy to be here to open this third session of the UPR Plus series. I think from my perspective, it is fantastic to see digital systems in this discussion elevated to this level, because it is so part and parcel of the overall digital transformation approach that we've taken in UNDP. And so I want to thank you to the people who are participating in this and the work that you've been doing, the energy, the ideas, the commitment that you've been bringing to this. And of course, the innovators and implementers that are going to be presenting in the context of this session. And just, you know, from my side, I just want to mention a couple of things. I think as we look at this area of how digital systems and technologies can really contribute to the monitoring side of things, you know, it's very much in keeping with our overall thinking of where we go into the next strategic plan when it comes to digital as well. And so some of you may be aware that the current thinking around the the strategic plan is that digital transformation, and it's actually currently called digital and AI transformation, will be one of the accelerators for the strategic plan. And in that area, what we lay out there is that, you know, UNDP has an important role in the digital space in supporting countries with policies and strategies, so the kind of governance space around digitalization, supporting capacities for digitalization approaches, and actually supporting the technology implementation. And as we look into the examples that we're going to see today of the different kinds of monitoring platforms and things like that, these all can fit into those areas, because as I think you know, especially those of you who have worked in this space, we never really talk about a digital technology on its own. It has to be embedded in the broader context, in the broader infrastructure of what we have. And just to be sure that it is sustainable and effective, we have to take into account capacities of people to actually use technology, capacities of whether it's our government counterparts or civil society counterparts to actually make use of technology, and doing all of this with putting people at the center, because that is really the fundamental heart of the approach that we have to digital transformation, is that this is not about the technology. This is about putting people at the center and ensuring that the impact around development for people is actually there and considered right up front, along with rights and the results that we want to have. Sorry, I just heard a little bit of feedback.
Sorry, Rob, you're muted. Rob?
Oh, I'm sorry. Where did I drop off? Okay. Sorry about that. I hope you heard what I was saying about the strategic plan and the putting people at the center, and I must have bumped my space bar and muted myself. I apologize. But I was just going to say, you know, I think we're looking forward to hearing today from several teams that are doing really interesting work across Pakistan, Paraguay, Maldives. And, you know, these kinds of platforms are great examples of, you know, how we can support governments to consolidate recommendations from the UPR and put all of those mechanisms for human rights in one space. How we can track implementation status more easily, effectively, more openly. How do we support civil society and national human rights institutions to stay engaged, informed, and empowered to contribute? And how can we engage in a better and a smarter way with our development partners? Because if you have the data behind you, you have the evidence there, you can make a stronger case when it comes to funding partners and things like that, of course. So all of that to say, it's really interesting to see, and it's going to be interesting to hear from what we've got going on now. As also we look to the future, I think that things are going to get even more interesting and probably more complicated as well. Because in this space, we're probably safe to say we're just at the beginning of what digital systems can do here. As we see the AI, the emergence of powerful AI technologies, we are probably entering into a time where these systems will touch virtually every part of humanity, and where we'll have new tools available to us to enhance the ways that we collect, we analyze, we act on information. We'll have new geographic information systems that will be able to combine with AI in order to do automated tracking and really be able to do monitoring from a remote sensing point of view. But of course, that also means these technologies come with new risks to human rights. And there are going to be all sorts of new complications and new human rights issues that we'll need to take into account when we work in this space. So it's definitely an exciting time. It's an important time that we're thinking about this. And it's extremely important that UNDP, along with our partners, are at the forefront of this thinking. And so you as the innovators, you as the implementers for the UPR Plus work that we're doing, it is so important that we learn from each other. We are understanding where we are in terms of cutting edge and the ability to put technologies that are focused on people in place and in support of our partners around the world. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Gloria, and say thank you to all of you again, just for the work that you do every day to deliver on the promise of human rights and sustainable development around the world. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Rob, and thank you for those insightful thoughts, initial thoughts, and to put on the table the main challenge that we have in the immediately future, but also the opportunities. And thank you again. And next we have Judy Van Dassen. Judy is our human rights policy specialist at UNDP, who will present on the ways in which UNDP can support the development of national coordination mechanisms and digital platforms to improve the implementation and the follow-up on UPR recommendations and human rights commitments. Julie, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gloria, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. From wherever you're joining, thank you for joining our session today. It's really great to see such a strong interest in the UPR Plus series. I'd like to start, okay, to the next slide. Today, this is part of a 4-session series on UPR Plus. Today, we're turning our focus to the monitoring side of things, but in previous sessions, we've talked about preparing for the UPR and following up on recommendations. But of course, implementation doesn't mean much without systems to track what's actually happening. And that's what this session is all about, is the tracking systems that we can employ. We'll have 3 presentations on national coordination mechanisms and digital platforms that help monitor UPR recommendations and other human rights commitments to improve implementation, reporting, and follow-up capacities. And then in our final session, which will be on the 7th of May, we will look at how UPR recommendations can apply to other emerging issues beyond just governance and human rights, right? And we'll have case studies on health, environment, crisis, and business and human rights. So we also have a Spark Blue page where we have been uploading all of the sessions and will continue to do so. You can find the recordings there along with the presentations and all the links that are shared during this session. My colleague Amar, who is in the chat, will share the link with you for the Spark Blue page now. And also just to repeat his request that he put in the chat, if you could put your names and locations in the chat, it would be very appreciated. Next slide, please. So let's begin with a bit of a refresher. I know some people have attended all of the sessions, but some are new to this one. So just to go over what the UPR is, the Universal Periodic Review is a state-led process that reviews the human rights records of all UN member states every 4.5 years. It's a peer review mechanism, which means that countries offer recommendations to each other. Once a government accepts a recommendation, the expectation will be that they would then follow through and show progress before the next reporting cycle. But the UPR is more than just a checklist. It's a process that encourages inclusive national dialogue. Governments work with civil society and NHRIs to reflect on challenges and define what kind of progress what it should look like, what they would like to achieve. And this makes it not only a human rights tool, but also a strategic development and a programming tool. Next slide. So UPR Plus, that's where this UPR Plus initiative comes in. UNDP has developed this approach to help countries move from commitment to action. The UPR Plus is about supporting governments to turn accepted recommendations into something concrete, be it a policy or a program or a budgeted action plan. It's also about helping UNDP country offices identify where and how UPR recommendations can intersect with our own work, right? Whether it be SDGs, it covers governance, crisis response, justice, climate, gender. There are myriad thematic areas that the UPR recommendations can cover. So they can be powerful programming entry points. And in the current climate of tightening development financing, I think UPR Plus offers us a structured way to better connect our programming priorities with donor interests. Because by anchoring our work to accepted UPR recommendations, we can demonstrate national ownership because the government has already committed to them. But we can also map donor alignment because these recommendations have come from member states who often fund development program or provide technical assistance in kind. So the UPR Plus enables us to position ourselves as a partner that links national priorities with international cooperation and drives sustainable development through the realization of human rights commitments. Next slide, please. So how can UNDP help concretely? Our support can span from strengthening institutional coordination mechanisms to introducing digital tools that make monitoring easier, more inclusive, and more transparent. And that's what we'll be looking at in more detail today. We can support national governments in the creation of interministerial and cross-institutional coordination mechanisms that can align efforts and clarify responsibilities for UPR implementation. These may be informal platforms, but they can also be formal structures like the National Mechanisms for Implementation, Reporting, and Follow-up, or NMIRFs, which strengthen national ownership and close the gap between commitments and implementation. We can also help facilitate inclusive policy discussions, bringing together civil society, parliament, national human rights institutions to co-create solutions and prioritize action. And this is critical for legitimacy, it's critical for sustainability, particularly in more politically sensitive contexts. Another area where we can help is to develop national action plans that reflect the accepted UPR recommendations. These plans provide a structured roadmap, making commitments visible, trackable, and actionable. They also provide a clear basis for engagement with donors, with other partners, for support in the implementation, and they allow governments to organize cross-cutting reforms in a much more coherent and measurable way. So we support also the integration of human rights data and monitoring into national development and SDG reporting systems. When UPR follow-up is linked with existing planning and budget frameworks, it's much more likely to be funded, to be maintained, and to be scaled up. And finally, we can help countries build connections beyond their own borders. So UNDP can play a really critical role in enhancing regional and global linkages with governments and NHRIs. We support peer learning, including the UPR repository, which features good practices from a number of countries. We can facilitate regional dialogues and participation in global fora. And this can help countries learn from one another, but also it positions their progress within the broader human rights and sustainable development agendas. Next slide, please. So let's now talk about digital systems specifically. UNDP supports digital readiness assessments to understand existing capabilities and identify entry points for digital monitoring. This helps governments and NHRIs build the right systems based on where they're at in their digitalization process and what they can achieve within their budgets and their capacities. We're currently developing a digital readiness assessment toolkit for NHRIs through the tripartite partnership, which we do, UNDP does together with OHCHR and GUNRI, which is a global alliance of NHRIs. And we're piloting it right now with select NHRIs, and it should be available for broader use before the end of the year. We also help design and establish databases that store UPR and other human rights recommendations in one accessible space. These platforms allow for interministerial coordination, regular updates, transparent monitoring, and they can support both national reporting and public accountability by making the information accessible. Several digital tools are already in use to support this kind of work, and it's important that we look at them and promote open source solutions specifically that make it more financially sustainable for governments to maintain them, and they can be adapted, scaled, and integrated into existing e-governance frameworks where they exist. So some examples of these systems include HurryDocs, which is on the UWASI platform for NHRIs, the Impact OSS platform, which is used in Samoa, Paraguay's Samori Plus system, which our colleague Ricardo will talk about in more depth later, and OHCHR's National Recommendation Tracking Databases, or NRTDs. My colleague will put some links in the chat for you, so if you want to look at these systems and how they operate in more depth, you can take a look through the links. These systems track implementation of human rights recommendations and their alignment with the SDGs, and they enable coordinated follow-up, real-time updates, and greater transparency across both governments and stakeholders. We also organize design workshops to define system architecture, what data needs to be collected, how does it need to be visualized, who needs to have access to it and who shouldn't have access to it. And this process ensures that the platform can be tailored to the real needs in country and sustainably managed. We provide technical assistance to digitize reporting workflows and build systems that can collect and analyze real-time data, and which improves the ability to identify implementation trends, but also flag delays and measure results. And finally, we can support capacity building to our partners, training national actors in digital literacy, analytics, data-informed planning. These skills are critical for transforming systems from data repositories into actual decision-making tools. Because, I mean, the best system in the world only works if the people behind it can use it, manage it, and improve it as need be over time. Next slide. So this concludes my overview of how UNDP can support national partners in tracking UPR commitments through stronger systems and smarter tools. I hope it was helpful, and I look forward to hearing the presentations from our colleagues in Paraguay, Maldives, and Pakistan in the next sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for sharing our strong pathways of our works in human rights, but also the tools to expand our footprint of this work around the world. And before to move to our panel discussion, and we are wondering to hear about Pakistan, Maldives, and Paraguay experience, I will let the floor with Ezgi to share a quick survey, because we have a lot of colleagues connected online. So feel free to continue interacting on the chat. And Ezgi, we prepared a quick quiz to know more about this interesting work. Ezgi?
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Gloria, Rob, and Julie. Indeed, there's almost 60 of us, and we all come from different backgrounds and different levels of exposure to this work. So we just wanted to scope the room and get a sense, get a pulse of the room. Let us introduce the questions. So our first question is about your current work regarding UPR. Are you doing any work on the Universal Periodic Review? If yes, is this on any of the following: UPR preparation, reporting against recommendations, advocacy and lobbying for implementation, or any other work? If you choose other, it will be great if you could specify on the chat what other areas of UPR you're currently working on. I will repeat the question again. Are you doing any work on the UPR as we speak? If yes, is this on UPR preparation, reporting against recommendations, advocacy and lobbying for implementation, or other? So far, we have about 30% of the colleagues or participating responded, so I'll give another second or two. The question should pop up on your window. I see that more colleagues are responding, and we will be sharing so everyone has a sense. Okay, perhaps in the interest of time, we are almost at the 50% marker, so I can close the poll and share the results with everyone. This is also for the team's reflection. It seems like majority of the work at the moment is regarding the advocacy and lobbying for implementation, followed by UPR preparation process support, and finally the reporting against recommendations. So we have one more question in this section. Here we go. It's going to be easier. Have you supported any digitalization initiatives for UPR and or treaty body reporting? And in terms of time frame, we are mainly curious in general, but in the past 2 to 3 years. Have you supported any digitalization initiatives for UPR and or treaty body reporting? Yes, no, or it's in the pipeline. It's an upcoming work stream. Please do specify. I see almost 40% of the participants already responded. Let's give another second. Ending the poll now. As you can see, we have about 13 colleagues who have expressed that they have not yet engaged in digitalization initiatives for UPR. But then we also have about 10 colleagues who are. It will be great to hear from those colleagues regarding their experiences after our country office speakers and presenters. And at last, here is the last question as an icebreaker. Here we go. What skills and capacities do you think UNDP needs to be able to provide support on digitalized human rights reporting? Training on normative frameworks, digital expertise, engagement and coordination with national counterparts, or any other? Again, if it's other, please do specify on the chat, as we're curious to scope the areas of gaps and needs to improve our work. What skills and capacities do you think UNDP needs to be able to provide support on digitalized human rights reporting, training on normative frameworks, digital expertise, engagement and coordination with national counterparts? Over 50% responded, so I'm sharing the results with everyone. And it seems like digital expertise with 88% of the voters is the highest area of need and gap. Technical expertise, followed by training on normative frameworks and engagement and coordination with national counterparts. Okay, without further ado, not taking time, I would like to hand back to you, Gloria. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslia. Thank you, all of you, I'm sorry, I put something, to participate on this quiz. And now it's time to move forward onto our panel discussion, because the inspirations are right from the experiences. So I will invite Amar Hassan, Shahad Ahmad, Fatima Didi, and Ricardo Ortega. And let's start with Amar Hassan from UNDP Pakistan to share the experience from these country offices. And also, Amar is will present it with Shahad Ahmad, Country Director of Bytes for All. Thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Gloria. I'm joined here with my colleague Ahmed, a mini officer, but also our national partners, Shahzad and Haroon from Bytes for All, who are the masterminds and the brains behind the HRIMS. I guess we're presenting this jointly because UNDP has worked very closely with Bytes in Pakistan over the past 7-8 years on not just human rights digitization, but general initiatives on rights-based development as well. I'll give an overview of what UNDP has been doing on the UPR process, on treaty body reporting, but also our other initiatives on human rights, before I hand it over to Shahzad to speak about the actual system that is in place in Pakistan. Next, please, Ruqayya. So the context for Pakistan is that it's a very large country. It's very decentralized. There is devolution, which brings together a lot of responsibilities for provincial level actors, subnational level actors on protecting human rights. There's one federal government here in Islamabad. There's a Ministry of Human Rights. There's a National Commission for Human Rights also based in Islamabad. Then you have 4 provinces. Each province has the mandate to report against Pakistan's international treaty body obligations by collecting data at the subnational level, transmitting it up towards the center, and then the center collates that data and through various ministries, including the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, reports to international treaty bodies and the UPR process. Could you just go back to 1 second? Yeah, thanks. Just to build on this, that the mandate lies with the subnational governments or the provincial governments. You'll see that these are the 4 provinces: Sindh, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Punjab, and Balochistan. And they've come up over the past years with different policies, some core human rights related policies. Sindh has worked on child protection, Punjab on women development. These are independent policies, independent of what's happening at the center, but all of this brings together an element of legislation, of policy work at the subnational level, which basically binds the 4 provinces together, but also sets the legislative frameworks through which data collection, data analysis, and data transmission can be done to report against treaty bodies and UPR. Yes, next, please. Where does UNDP fit in all of this? So I guess our technical partners are the Ministry of Human Rights, are the provincial human rights departments. We worked with them through Bytes and other CSO partners as well on the National Action Plan on Human Rights. This is a federal level overarching framework that sets the ground rules on how human rights implementation should take place. Pakistan isn't an easy context. There's conflict, there's climate change, there are human rights challenges, but trying to address many of these challenges, it's also nice to see that policy level interventions take place. UNDP's role comes in when we try to implement some of these policies. For example, the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. Pakistan was the first country in South Asia to develop this. implementation is still lacking. Human rights departments have been working on various research, legislative review, and policy drafting processes. UNDP's role comes in to support consultative engagements, to provide technical expertise to ensure that all policies at the federal level and down below at the provincial level are as rights-based as possible. Simultaneously, our support to NHRIs continues, our support to the RCO office continues, again, on not just the policy level work, but also digitization, on data collection, on evidence-based reporting. The HRTF is supported through the RCO in Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't have OCHR in country, by the way, so we have to closely coordinate with our desk officer who's based in Geneva. And that partnership also, I guess, guides our overall digitization, human rights reporting work. Given all of this, the challenge of devolution, the existence of legislative frameworks of policies, we in 2017 were approached by the government of Pakistan to develop a digital system through which data could be not just collected at the subnational level, but also be transmitted digitally, securely to the federal government for collation and then reporting against treaty bodies. We started this process in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Bytes for All was there, our core partner back then as well. It was piloted for 2 years. A lot of discussions, a lot of engagement, a lot of back and forth with OCHR on indicators, on best practices, on NRTD, on NMIRF back then. And all of this was taken into consideration to design the HRIMS, the Human Rights Information Management System. And we'll show you some screenshots of the system as well, how it works, how data is entered, how data is collated, and what challenges exist, and how we see this system progressing over the next 3 to 4 years in Pakistan. Next, please. So this is my last slide. But before I hand it over to Shahzad Saab, I'd like to just very quickly run you through the system or the I guess mechanism of collecting and analyzing and reporting data. We'll start at the top. If there's a human rights violation, or if there's a concern that a citizen wants to report, it's usually at the subnational level. Where does that person go? Either to the police station, to the ombudsperson's office, to the NHRI's subnational office. It's recorded. It's recorded manually. That manual data entry then needs to be digitized. We're not there yet. We're not at the subnational level, but where we are is that once that data entry is recorded and entered at the subnational level, it's transmitted up to the provincial government level. That's the second tier over there. But I said it's the governance structures are devolved. So every province has a human rights department. However, the human rights violation or the complaint that is registered is not registered at the human rights department. It comes up to the police department at the provincial level, or the home department, or the social welfare department. So this was a key concern for us when designing the system. How do we link the provincial human rights departments with the other line departments? There's 20 of them in each province. That makes 80 departments. And when I say department, they're full-fledged ministries even. So this was a concern. This is something that Shahzad will speak on as well, how data is then transmitted horizontally at the provincial level. And then finally, once it's collated at the provincial level, how can the Human Rights Department transmit this vertically up to the Ministry of Human Rights here in Islamabad, which then closely coordinates with, again, another 10, 15 ministries, the NHRI, which is again offline. The NHRI is not part of this system yet. Hopefully, they will be in the future. The Ministry of Commerce has an important role to play over here because they're the custodians of the treaty implementation cells in Pakistan. And then, of course, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which has the mandate to report against the treaty body obligations, including UPR. How all of this is done, how all of this is sometimes not done, what challenges exist, what the system allows for, what the system doesn't allow for, is what Shahzad will now, I guess, speak on over the next 5-7 minutes. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next slide, please. Colleagues, when we started working on HRIMS, and then we wanted to take up this digitalization, endeavor. As Amar mentioned that we had to, we had a very wide-ranging consultative process. We had to involve a lot of people, not only from UN, from governments, at the provincial level, federal level. There were civil society organizations. There were people from the NHRI. So, it was a wide, national level consultative process. And with that, we came up with this solution. So essentially, HRIMS, it records, for the purpose of reporting, for UPR, for treaty bodies or sustainable development goals. So it records accomplishments. It also helps document what are the work in progress. So when we say work in progress, it means that some policy development work is going on, some social development project is going on. So all those progresses, and also, of course, it can also flag issues of concern on the key indicators that we have. HRIMS, as I mentioned, right now it helps reporting on UPR. Then 7 core conventions, the treaty bodies, because government of Pakistan have to report on that, so that the progress report also can extract data from the system, and then SDGs. In addition to this, at the Ministry of Human Rights, when local data requests or data needs are there from the parliamentary bodies, the same system is being used. Next slide. So I heard this word open source earlier from Julie, and it was a very important point. Thank you very much. So we really wanted to keep it open source because we know that for the long-term sustainability purposes and long-term, it is important that, it does not, proprietary softwares, that will incur regular costs. We did not want that to happen. And we had in-house capacity. We understood that there is capacities within the government structures as well. So we went for an open source solution so that, those licensing and other expenditures related to this software do not occur. And then we don't have to continuously provide budgets for that purpose. It's a decentralized platform. It came out of the consultations that provinces wanted to have their own authority on the data. And essentially, that is why it is not linked to live internet. Every province has their own, data centers. They have their own servers, and they have their own dashboards, and that's how they connect and they talk to each other. I will explain it a little bit further in the next slides, please. Within this structure, we have provided the Ministry of Human Rights at the federal level. This is where the Human Rights Information Management Cell is working right now. This is the cell that coordinates with all the provinces when they need to get the data, and that's the system through which they get this information. Just for the information of some of the tech people in the audience, this is developed on Drupal 7, this stable version, and the code was also tested and approved by the Premier Pakistan's Information Technology Board back then. Next, please. Okay. So just to explain the workflows, as I mentioned, that there are 3-4 layers. There is MOHR, there is provincial human rights departments, and there are provincial line departments. So what happens is that the data exists, or data is generated, or data is collected at the provincial line departments level. So from here, what happens is that when Ministry of Human Rights requests for the data through the system that works within the HRIMS structures, it goes to the provincial human rights department. And from this department, the request is sent to the relevant line departments or the sub-provincial departments who are relevant to that particular subject. So each line department have their own dashboard. Similarly, the provincial, the people, the focal point at the provincial level, they have their own dashboard, and then of course MOHR also have their own dashboard. So this is how data travels between these different layers. From line departments to the relevant focal point at the provinces, and from provinces, chief secretary usually signs off the data, and then that goes to the system, to the MOHR, that if there is to and fro within that data sets, then it can happen online. And for that purpose, there is a whole full-fledged cell that is working with experts, part of it. Next, please. So, so far, what we could achieve, I would say, that we could deploy state-of-the-art software and then hardware, not only at the provincial level but also at the federal level. I think we are very, we feel a lot of pleasure in this fact that government of Pakistan has a lot of ownership of this system. So, for example, HRIMS is mentioned in our national report as well that was submitted for the UPR, and then it means that this is something which is of value for them, and they are using it, and they are getting benefit of this. So it is essentially right now functional at the provincial levels. Then federal government. Okay. So essentially, there is HRIMS cell, which is budgeted and funded and supported by the government itself. There are dashboards I've already mentioned, and of course, we keep doing trainings on digital safety, data protection, and data privacy for the staff who are working on this. Next slide. So, out of those consultations that we conducted at the national level, the first thing that was extremely important and foremost was data jurisdiction issues. For certain reasons, provinces wanted to have the ownership and authority on their data, and they wanted to ensure in a digitalized system that what they share, it only that goes to the federal government. It's not that we do not have an open data regime over here, and there is still a lot of challenges within that concept. So data jurisdiction issue was very important. Then we do not have data protection policies, and in that context, data protection challenges. That was also of key concern. There is very sensitive data, as you know, when it comes to human rights data, and that sensitive data cannot be, nobody would want that compromised. So that is something which we had to look at. Then occasional administrative challenges, of course. One thing that keeps happening is high staff turnover. So what happens is that within government structures, people are appointed, they are trained, but then they get on another assignment. At times we feel that institutional memory and capacity gap is there. So in the way forward, we would tell you that we want to upgrade not only the software for decisional features, but if there is need, we can help with the hardware as well. Expanding HRIMS at the sub-provincial level, and then of course continued capacity building of the government staff on all different aspects of data, human rights-based data management and analysis. Thank you.
Omar, Shahzad, thank you for this incredible presentation and for sharing the Pakistan experience. Stay with us for the Q&A space, and we have a lot of colleagues connected online, and I want to say hello and thank you for our regional colleagues and also Sarah Rajai, who is with us. And let's move to Maldives experience and saying welcome to Fatima Didi. She is a technical consultant with the Attorney General Office. And Fatima, the floor is yours, and thank you for being here with us.
Hi, hello everyone. I am Swati. I used to be actually a consultant at AGO, but supported by UNDP. My contract ended just a month ago, so that's the reason why I am actually doing the presentation of the country office itself. Just to provide you a bit of, can we go to the next slide, please? Just to provide a little bit of context, Maldives is actually party to 8 of the 9 core human rights conventions. And if you, I mean, I know it's the text is very small, but we have ratified the very first convention in 1984. So Maldives has been engaging with the international human rights mechanisms since 1984. But until very recently, the reporting system and the reviews that we have been participating, all of this has been done in a very ad hoc manner. Usually, like when the reporting comes up, a committee will be formulated, and then people get together, they do the reporting, similarly for reviews as well. So after the reporting or the review is done, usually the committee is no longer functioning as committees, or people don't come together. So that's the reason why there was very little emphasis on implementation. NMIRF was actually the whole idea of establishing a national mechanism for implementation, reporting, and follow-up. This came up during Maldives preparation for the 3rd cycle of UPR. So it was actually, can we go to the next slide, please? The Maldives NMIRF was established 5th November 2020, and that's when Maldives participated in the review, UPR review for the 3rd cycle. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, and we'll not go into details of the structure itself. We have a 3-tier system. It's an interministerial committee. So the first is steering committee, which has like 3 institutions, AGO and Maldives Foreign Affairs, and then the president's office, because they usually decide on sensible matters. NMIRF committee is actually like the 3rd tier has a lot of committees, and they are the subcommittees, in the sense like each of the convention that we are party to. So the NMIRF committee is actually a representation of key stakeholders that are that we would see in the subcommittees. Moving on, and the Attorney General's office is the secretariat of the Maldives NMIRF. Next slide, please. The NMIRF, we actually do reporting, participating in reviews, following up on recommendations, and implementation of the monitoring of the implementation of recommendations. Currently, the NMIRF only focuses on human rights treaty works, but occasionally we do provide our input and also support to the visits of the special procedures, and also UPR is one of the focus of the NMIRF as well. So we do track recommendations and also reporting and participation of UPR review as well through the NMIRF. Next slide, please. Today, I'll just touch briefly on the TORs and SOPs that we have developed, and the reporting and reviews that we have done through NMIRF. And the focal points, that's actually the asset of the NMIRF, I would say, and briefly on NRTD as well. Next slide, please. Just very briefly, we have 3 TOR and 1 standard operating procedure. I'll just not go into detail of what's there, but essentially these documents actually provide us on how the NMIRF would work. So the establishing structures, this actually essentially enables the institutions and stakeholders who are in all committees and subcommittees. They know what their roles are, what they're supposed to do. It provides clarity to them. So like I said, in the past, we lacked these structures and the modalities and methodologies on how we're going to carry out this work and how we're going to do it in a sustainable manner. So that's what NMIRF actually has brought to us. It has brought us efficiency. So because of this, our engagements with the international human rights mechanism has tremendously increased over the past 3 years or 5 years, I would say. Next slide, please. In the past 3 years itself, Maldives has actually submitted 5 state reports under different human rights treaties and participated in 1 of the state reviews. And this is actually, I know most of you are not familiar with the context, but those who are, I mean, this is a huge success compared to in the past. And the reason why we were actually able to do this was, again, like I said before, the methodology of how to go about this was clear. The lead agencies under each each convention knew that they were the lead agency, and they was when they have to start their work with regard to reporting or participating in reviews. And there was a secretariat at the Attorney General's office who was providing guidance throughout the entire process. So we were organized, and there was a clear coordination mechanism established. So that's the reason why the Maldives was able to engage. I mean, the increment of engagement was that. But like, I mean, this all is not without any challenges. Like, as you can see, it requires a lot of coordination for us to actually submit even a single report. Coordination in the sense, like, when we move to the next slide, you will see the amount of coordination that goes into any, I mean, in terms of engaging with people and coordinating with people for us to come up with a single report even. It was challenging to get timely input from institutions, and receiving input was one thing, but the quality of information that we get for us to compile the report it's another story. So there was a lot of challenges in that sense. So some of the things that we have done to overcome these challenges within the past 3 years is that we've started providing, I wouldn't say that we're done with training everyone, but we have started providing trainings with the support of the OHCHR. When it's time for us to do the reporting, the quality of information, how to improve on them. So in order to counter this, we provided them during these trainings on how each stakeholder can come up with, like, providing them sample responses on how they should be writing or providing their input. And also encourage them to reach out to us as much as they need, just to simplify the questions on what we are asking them to provide, and also providing them with enough time so that they can reach out to the respective departments in their office. They can gather the input they would need and provide us with something substantive. So these are some of the things that we have done. And also, one of the other key things that the NMIRF brings in is that in the past, like, I have been working with the NMIRF, with the AGO for the past 3 years, but I have not seen any of the preparatory work that we have done prior to the establishment of NMIRF. So that's also one thing that we would really like to strengthen. So we do maintain records of information. So there's institutional memory established at the Secretariat, so that if anybody has to carry on this work, they can just refer back to the work that we have done in the past years. So that's also something that we have been doing very carefully throughout the in the past 3 years. Next slide, please. The focal points, they are the key asset actually of an NMIRF. I mean, from OHCHR itself, like, that's what they've been saying. NMIRF, it's a mechanism. Similarly, NRTD, that's also just a database. It's the people who are behind these mechanisms and databases who can actually make these things work, these things success. So we have 207 focal points across 49 institutions. They're represented in 2 committees and 8 subcommittees. We have representation from judiciary and also from parliament as well, and also from Maldives Bureau of Statistics. Again, even before the most challenging part was that people keep changing. They don't really do a proper handover of their work. And most of the time, people who are appointed as focal points, they don't really have the human rights background, the knowledge that they need to engage in or to do the reporting work. And the exchange of information that they have between the previous focal point and the new focal point, this is all quite poor in the past. And I wouldn't say that we have really like tackled everything. We are okay. There's no turnover. People doesn't change. It still happens. So we are very mindful it, and we so in the past, like for twice within the 3 years, we have actually reached out to all the institutions, checking with them to see if the focal points have changed. And also we encourage them to let us know voluntarily if any focal points have changed or are going to change. And also when we established the subcommittees for the we made sure that we have 2 focal points from each institution, that is one at the policy level and one at the technical level. This is also, we know that usually the policy level focal points, they tend to change when the administration changes. So we wanted continuity of the work that we do. So we want to have someone who has the knowledge and the background and who has worked with us retained in the committee. So that's also one thing we have done to ensure that there's continuity of work. We also provide them flexibility to change their focal points at any time. And a lot of calls, we actually, during the reporting and review period, we call each of the focal point who engage with us, and we provide them guidance. So that's all some of the measures that some of the things that we do to make sure that the focal points are informed or they engage with us in the process, because ultimately the AGO also believes that the focal points, they are the ones who would carry out this work, and this is the only way that it's sustainable, and we really want them to take ownership of this process, because ultimately the implementation of the recommendations are done by these other institutions or other ministries. AGO is just the secretariat, but the implementation work is carried out by other ministries. So that's we really try to keep them engaged throughout these processes. Next slide, please.
Fatima, I need to jump to say that we have 2 minutes to move forward, because
I'll be very quick. Yeah. NRTD, we actually don't have much to share with regards to our experience with NRTD on how we have been using it, because we just rolled out in January 2025. We haven't really utilized all the functions in NRTD as they are meant to use. For the 4th cycle of UPR process, we have we just ask the people who have been trained in January to use it to provide us the input to the report. So that's the extent of how much we have been using NRTD to do the monitoring of recommendation work. So in the interest of time, I'll just move on to the next slide. This year itself, MOLDIS is going to participate in 4 state reviews, and we are going to submit 2 state reports. Why I'm highlighting this is that this is a huge commitment from one country, and it's a very challenging one. And I think the reason why the AGO or the government was able to say yes to this was that we have done the preparatory work, we have established the methodology. So even though it's challenging, I think the office or the secretariat feels that this is a challenge that we can rise up to. So that's one reason why I wanted to highlight this. And that's all because also with the support of UNDP that the AG office or the secretariat of NMIRF was able to do. The last slide, please.
Thank you, Fatima. Yes, going forward in 30 seconds.
Yes. I just wanted to say before I conclude that the NMIRF or even the NRTD, it requires people behind it. for it to function smoothly. So we need dedicated people, and we need dedicated people who only, I mean, who do this work itself. Usually in offices or government offices, what happens is following up on or working on human rights recommendations, it becomes a secondary task of everyone. So this needs to be their primary work. So that's the only way this will run smoothly. And we have to build capacity of the focal point throughout the process. And as we go along, we learn and adapt. There's no one size fits formula in this. So we just adapt, we evolve as we go along. So I'll just stop here since my time is up.
You. Yes, thank you, Fatima, for sharing this interesting experience and to stress the relevance of the network and the role that the focal points plays in this mechanism. So to continue in these ways, I would just to be able to know more from the Paraguay experience, I will invite to Ricardo Ortega. Ricardo is first Secretary and Chief of the Universal System and Human Rights from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Paraguay. So Ricardo, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for the invitation, and thanks for taking your time to hear about our humble experience with CIMAR Plus. First of all, let me say that we, from Paraguay, we deeply value this UPR Plus initiative, particularly because it outlines the importance of UPR as an entry for UNDP to support implementation of human rights recommendations and commitments in connection with sustainable development. And in this regard, the national mechanisms for implementation, reporting, and follow-up have too much for contribution. In the case of Paraguay, the origins of our national mechanism, CIMAR Plus, are closely related to the UPR process, actually, because the first diagnosis, the formal diagnosis that we made on the challenges that we had in terms of follow-up of recommendations was made in 2010 during the preparation of our first UPR report. So we can say that CIMAR Plus was born as a response to the need of strengthening our capacities in this regard. And it is a result of, we could say, gradual improvement process that initiated in 2011 when we established a recommendation searching platform for systematization purpose initially. From then on, the first version of CIMAR was installed in 2014 as a monitoring and reporting mechanism, and later it took a qualitative improvement in 2017 to CIMAR Plus, which began to link human rights recommendations with SDGs. And of course, the support of UNDP Paraguay, the office of the national office of UNDP here, has been crucial, particularly for the launching of the plus version, the last one, the CIMAR Plus, the current version of our platform. But why did we decide to make this linkage between human rights and SDGs in our national mechanism? And the answer is simple, and I think all of us, we know the answer is because of facts. Facts show that more than 80% of the SDGs are aligned with the main human rights treaties, which means that the SDGs encompass all economic, social, cultural, environmental rights, as well as civil and political rights. And they are built on foundation of human rights that are recognized in several legally binding instruments. In regarding the UPR, I'm gonna just take some a couple of aspects to give us an idea on why it is so important to promote it is so important to promote sustainable development. And the first aspect is the fact that the UPR is a peer review among states that gives the option to accept or take note of recommendations. And the second one is that it's universal coverage. And it implies all instruments, all human rights, all topics and themes, all vulnerable populations, and all states, all UN member states, they are evaluated under the UPR process. The UPR scope is really, really overarching, and I'm gonna come back over this topic later to shape some reflections on the potential of UPR regarding sustainable development. Well, since our session today is about digital systems and national mechanisms, it's important to point it out since the beginning that CIMORE Plus, in our case, is not only a digital tool or system or database. It is probably a national mechanism for implementation, reporting, and follow-up, supported by two complementary and mutually reinforcing components. The first one, or on one hand, we have the technological component, which is basically a software that, of course, facilitates our work in terms of information management or reduction of bureaucracy. But on the other hand, the main component is the human one, which is actually the heart of the mechanism. Without this component, there's no technology, no matter how advanced it may be, that would properly do the sensitive work of managing human rights issues. And when we talk about this human component, we are referring to the network of focal points coordinated jointly by the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Justice, and which is made up of around 130 public officials who belong to about 65 institutions of the 3 state branches, including other independent bodies and institutions. Basically, these focal points are responsible for following up and reporting on the measures that their institutions are taking to implement human rights recommendations and on the platform. The consolidation of the CIMORE Plus as a mechanism was materialized in 2015 through a presidential decree that established a regulation which basically contains our working methods. According to these working methods, coordinators must establish an annual calendar of meetings, including regular meetings every 3 months and extraordinary meetings every time new recommendations are received, when we have to initiate a preparation of reports or the presentation in dialogues with the committees and other mechanisms. And at this point, I'd like to emphasize the importance of holding these meetings in person so that the focal points are empowered and they can take ownership of the recommendations. And in this way, it is more likely that they will effectively promote the follow-up, implementation, and reporting processes into their respective institutions. The regulation also contains provisions for appointment of focal points and guidelines for the preparation of reports, as well as a user's handbook that contains guidelines for systematization of and uploading of recommendations and reports. Well, in this way, our working methods combine the interaction between both components in a 5-step information management process that includes a first stage of systematization and then a follow-up and reporting stage. Well, long story short, to initiate the process, coordinators must cluster recommendations according to topics that we call thematic roundtables, that are the issues more frequently addressed by mechanisms like the UPR or committees or treaty bodies. regarding Paraguay. So we cluster recommendations using these items or topics. Then, through our processing tool, these recommendations are revised by the focal points through in-person meetings in order to identify aspects like the theme, rights, population, the competent institution to implement each recommendation, and of course the SDG, which is connected to any to every recommendation. Followed by the data migration, which is uploading this systematized information to the platform. Then in the follow-up and reporting stage, each focal point must report on the actions deployed by their institutions to implement recommendations, identifying obstacles or challenges, if any. And to be published, the information or the report need to go through verification and validation process that is previous to its publication in the platform. Now, what are the advantages of linking human rights recommendations with the SDGs through national mechanisms? According to our experience, it helps to enhance the visibility of the human rights mainstreaming in the 2030 agenda, and of course, the impact of implementation of human rights recommendations in the SDGs. It also facilitates the inclusion of human rights perspective in the formulation of public policy for development, and provides an overview of the current situation, including progress, challenges, and obstacles in both agendas, human rights and development agendas. In Paraguay, this cross-cutting approach between both agendas is clearly visible in the fact that our national human rights plan is linked to our national development plan, which at the same time is aligned to the 2030 agenda. So that makes the work a little easier. But of course, we have challenges. Which are these challenges? First, we need to strengthen the synergy between the CIMORE Plus, the platform, and the SDG monitoring platform, which is managed by our National Institution for Statistics. For this purpose, it is necessary to include indicators in the working methods of CIMORE Plus, in accordance with, for example, the OECHR's guide for human rights indicators, and also to increase or to keep increasing the contributions of CIMORE to national voluntary reviews on SDG implementation from a human rights perspective. Currently, the CIMORE provides information for a specific chapter of our national voluntary review, but our main challenge is to increase this contribution in terms of information. Additionally, I would say that many countries we share same challenges in terms of I would say lack of resources, limited technical expertise, and some troubles in coordination among government agencies. In our opinion, to meet these challenges, it is important to ensure adequate support, funding, resources, particularly in developing countries. And this includes budgetary, technical, and human resources, and of course, the provisions of assistance in terms of capacity building.
Ricardo, I need to say sorry, as a moderator, I need to say 30 seconds to
Yeah, this slide just reflect the good interaction that we have here with some agencies, including the UNDP. And to sum up, I just will say that when we support the work of national mechanisms, we are fostering not only the implementation of human rights commitments, but also those that are related to sustainable development. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm sorry for talking maybe too much.
It's a lot of information, it's a lot of good experiences and a lot of learnings coming from this free experience. And thank you, Pakistan, Maldives, and Paraguay for sharing those presentations. And thank you all the panelists for those valuable insights. We will now open the floor for questions. So we have we are running late, but we have some time to, and feel free to ask questions. And if I may, to ask to put all the speakers and panelists at the view, and colleagues, experience and tool can be seen in the chat, and please reach out to our colleagues. As we discussed, UNDP, you are moving forward on institutions for the future, including digital and AI transitions. So evidence-based decisions and how we can translate the recommendations into public policies and the value of our region, our national networks to ensure that those challenges that the mechanisms are addressing can be supported. I will take a minute to, if someone has any question or someone who are wondering to put it on the chat. I will ask Julie if we have some questions arriving. We have an additional minutes, and I am wondering to ask you in terms of the focus on transparency and accountability, and probably it's you run through your presentations related to the challenge in terms of evidence and data management, but also and the follow-up of the recommendations. But if I may to ask you 30 seconds about to stress the transparency and accountability power of those experience. And I will start with Ricardo and continue with Fatima and with Amar and Shazam. Ricardo.
Thank you for the question. Well, from our experience, the fact that all the information is publicly accessible through the Simore Plus with no password, no user, it is a big step toward transparency. Then I would add that the Simore Plus includes a participation platform, which is CSO Plus, when civil society organization can create a user and they have the opportunity, for example, to interact with the focal points, providing comments on the reports that they are uploading to the platform. So we are trying to keep our transparency and accountability principles, but I have to admit that sometimes it is a little bit difficult because, for example, our platform for CSO participation is not being used as frequent as we pretended.
Thank you, Ricardo. Fatima?
Thank you for your question. In Maldives, like specifically for NRTD, currently the system actually, the database doesn't allow outsiders to actually see. So it's just for the government counterparts only. But we do hope to open this platform for public as well. And I think OHCHR is also working on this interface currently, like they're developing the interface for public access. So as of now, it's just for the government counterparts. But then during our reporting process, we actually do have consultations with CSOs and also other independent institutions. So this we do broad public announcements. We ask them to sign up with us to provide We engage with them during the information collection phase, and we ask them to provide their input to any drafts that we come up with before we finalize the report. So that's how we engage with them during the reporting process currently.
Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting. And Amar Shazad from...
So in Pakistan, there are two kinds of data sets. One data that, for example, on violations or on human rights issues, that is developed by CSOs or by NHRI. That is different. But then this data, what we are talking about within the HRIMS structure, is government's data. It's very sensitive data usually. So, I mean, even we don't have access to it. It's only the government departments, focal points, or the relevant people in the ministry. They have access to it. They process it, and they, share it with whosoever they want to. So this is not open data structure within the HRIMS structure. But we have other data sets. For example, in Pakistan, blasphemy is a major issue. So if blasphemy-related data is shared openly, then it can cause a lot of, it can cause lives as well. So that's why it is in that design.
Well, thank you all of you, and stay with me just for share with all of us some closing remarks or some reflections. Today's session clearly highlighted how we can invest in digital systems and coordination mechanisms to support governments to strategically implement and monitor UPR recommendations and translate the UPR recommendations into public policies. This not only helps countries advance human rights commitment, but also support them in taking stock of progress and identifying areas for further improvement. This can also help us better position on human rights achievements with donor priorities. We discussed about the resource mobilization, and those types of experience allows us to imagine that's how engaging resource mobilization strategies. Insights for you from Pakistan, from Maldives and Paraguay today underscore the immense value of coordinated national action plans. Ricardo told about the link between the development plan, national plan, but also the human rights plans, inclusive stakeholder engagement, robust tracking system, and a strategic alignment with international development partners. Thank you for those insights this morning. And to support you in this important work, colleagues, I strongly encourage you to reach the resources discussed today, particularly the UPR repository, which provides a wealth of country-specific good practice and also lessons learned, as Paraguay, Maldives, and Pakistan shared with us today. Additionally, remember that all sessions materials, the presentations as we shared today, and recordings will be available on the Human Rights page on Spark Blue, which is regularly updated to provide continued support to your country office initiatives. Looking ahead, please join us for our next and final session in the UPR Plus series. On May 7, we will hold our final session, and the topic will be emerging issues, framing the UPR to support health, environment, crisis, and business and human rights programming. And of course, if you want to explore any of the programming opportunities presented today or have any further questions, please reach out to our colleagues, Julie Van Dassen and Rokaya. Thank you for preparing with care this session. And also they will be happy to discuss this further with you. And also, thank you, Sarah, for being part of this session and this strategic UNDP view as a global level. And we are committed to supporting you every step of the way in harnessing the full potential of the UPR process for sustainable human rights progress. Thank you again, and we look forward to see you in our next session. Goodbye.
Thank you, Gloria.
All the best.
Thanks. Bye, guys.